what we're going to do is some live idea generation. People have sent in some suggestions, so thank you for those that have done. I think what I'll do first, so we've got about an hour. So first, I think I'll go through some of the suggestions that have been sent in, and I have some things to say about them, just kind of my opinion on each topic and subject that people have sent in. And then what we'll do is I'll dive into what I think is a quite live topic right now, which I think is fits with my typical workflow of coming up with ideas. So I think it would be a very good one for us to use as an example. And I'll go through some ideas I've had, and we'll come up with some ideas live, and we'll just kind of push it and we'll sketch out some concepts. We won't do the designing side today like we did last week, but we'll come up with the ideas. So that's the plan. So stick around. I think it's going to be useful and interesting, especially if you're. What I'm going to try and do is reverse engineer some of my ideas, so you can. I'm going to give you some ideas, which I think are live, hot ideas, which are worth something. I'm going to give them to you for free, and then what I'll try and do as we're working through them is try and do a reverse engineer job, so you can not just see some great ideas, but you can also look and figure out how has Michael come up with those ideas, what's his process been like, are there any kind of steps and plans I can follow to help me come up with ideas like that in the future. So that's the plan. So first off, I think what I'll do is I'll get rid of that, and I'll share this other screen. And we'll go through some of the suggestions that people sent in. So if I just zoom in on this a little bit. Hope everyone's doing okay today. It's very nice. In fact, it's gone a bit cloudy, but it was very nice an hour or so ago. Here in Cheshire, very sunny day. I think tomorrow's going to be very nice as well. And yeah, so here are some of the subjects that people sent in. Oh, we've got a question. Hold on. Ray says, have you done mask-specific designs, Michael, or just using one design for all products? I have not done any mask-specific designs, Ray. It's just not on my radar at the moment. I think maybe just personally, I'm more of a long-term kind of designer, and I'm trying very hard not to get pulled off into different directions. So while masks are good, obviously they're selling right now, I'm not sure masks will be selling as hot in a year's time, and mask-specific designs, therefore, might not be as applicable and useful, and not as a long-term investment, if that makes sense. But of course, it's all different strokes for different folks. We're all in we're all in different stages of our business, and there's certainly nothing wrong with creating mask designs. It's not something I've done though. All right, okay, great. So let me have a look at some of these topics, and I'll say something about each of them. I could probably still zoom in a bit more there, couldn't we? So right at the top of the list here, we've got, I don't know how well you can see it, but it says target audience, people who love kayaks, canoes, and going on vacations. So just to explain, if you're just joining us, this is a little survey I sent out at the start of this week, just asking if anyone had any suggestions for topics or subjects or markets they'd like to try and come up with ideas for. And these are some of those that were sent in. So this is one of them. People who love kayaks, canoes, going on vacations. So for me, that kind of that's a quite specific topic, and that's a good thing. What you'll see as we go down this list is some of them are quite general, which is not so good. And the more general, the less less easy it's going to be to create ideas for. The more specific you get, the much easier it's going to be. And if you think about it this way, the most specific you could possibly be, the absolute maximum specificity, if you like, would be not a subject or a topic really, but an actual concept, an actual idea for a design. So if you, I don't know, walk down the street and you saw someone wearing a design and you kind of thought, well, I'm going to do a version of that, that's like that's a market, if you like, of total specificity around a particular concept. Now, obviously, we don't do that. We come up with topics and stuff. But at the broad range, you've got really broad stuff like, for example, streetwear, which is a really broad topic. But at the very niche area, you could say something like kayaks and canoes. In fact, it'd probably be better if I sketch this out to try and illustrate my point. So, for example, if I get rid of this and share my iPad again, here we go. So, so right here, if we say canoes, this is a pretty. I mean, I think it's a pretty specific subject, but you could go much more specific. I imagine there are types of canoes, although not knowing anything about canoes, I don't know what to write in here. But let's say there's type 1 canoe and then there's type 2 canoe, and you could obviously research this. And then you could also kind of narrow down into people, so you could think about who actually who you're marketing to. So obviously canoer is a topic, is a subject, people who like canoeing, but who are those people, and are there not groups we could break them into? So there might be, for example, I don't know, older people who like to canoe. There might be young people or even kids who are into canoeing, and there might be, I don't know, some other kind of demographic, or you could say people who like to canoe in certain spots, so location based. So you could have people who like to canoe in the sea, people who like I don't know, river rapid canoeing or whatever. So this is an example, but this is a good kind of practice to try. Is if you're trying to come up with ideas for a particular subject, then get as specific as you can and do something like this. Do a kind of mind map, flowchart diagram like this, where you narrow things down. And generally, the further out you can get, the more specific and the easier it's going to be to come up with ideas, because you're narrowing your focus so much. However, if someone said to me, "Can you come up with just some ideas for canoes?" or for that kind of niche, if you like, I would probably, first off, before I did something like this, I would just try and find some pun-based stuff. So my typical approach to that would be any words. I would list out words that have something to do with canoe. So, for example, obviously, the obvious ones like canoe, if I'm spelling it right, kayak, I don't know, water, sea, river, paddle, all those kind of things. I would list out some words, and then I would try and see if there's any kind of potential pun type stuff we could do with any of this. So, for example, I mean, canoe, I think canoe's a good word because it's one of those words that sounds a little bit like other things. Canoe sounds like can you. So that gives you room to come up with some phrase-based stuff, off the back of can you something or other. Are there phrases out there? Are there sayings that include the word can you? And can we replace them with canoe? I think there probably are. And we could do something like that. So that's a kind of sounds alike approach. But you can do the same thing with rhyming, like what rhymes with kayak. Nothing off the top of my head, but for example, you can go to rhymezone.com and try and find some words that rhyme with any of these things. Someone's just said, "Can you dig it?" Shurs just suggested that. So there's a great example. A very simple design off the back of that you could do, a little illustration of a canoe, whatever. Can you dig it? Simple enough design. Works great as a t-shirt, and it's you can take it and illustrate it in many different ways, but the underlying idea is very simple. It's simply a little bit of a pun, play on words based on those sounds. So this is kind of one route that you can go down, the kind of text-based route, and I'll show you in a few minutes when I get to my kind of real ideas, and we're going to do some actual, I mean, I guess we've got one there, but we're going to do some really a bit more meaty ones in a second. Good one from Tara as well. Can you keep up? There's a great one. So that kind of works on a couple of levels, because we've got the canoe in there, but we've also got the idea of people going out on canoe trips in a group, and can you keep up with me, and that kind of thing. Can you keep up with me? So yeah, you guys are getting it already. that's something you can do with that idea. So the next one on the list was 4th of July. Now again, that's that I would say is a very general one again, but if we think about what the 4th of July is, it's a holiday. It's a recurring holiday, which is good in the sense that ideas that we come up with for this and designs off the back of it can be reused year after year. You can return to them, you can revisit them, you could illustrate them in different ways. But in general, event-based stuff like this is very is broad, you know, as it is, it's a very broad topic. So again, I'd want to narrow this down. One of the things I do with something like this is think about what's the motivation that someone has when they're looking for a 4th of July shirt. So usually I think it's going to be something like a party or a barbecue that they're going to go to, and they want to wear a funny t-shirt for that. It's quite similar to like Halloween, which is people are buying Halloween shirts to wear to be seen by other people. And usually if it's going to be a funny kind of thing, then they want someone to laugh at their t-shirt and stuff. So that gives us the opportunity to do stuff around current trends. So whenever it's Halloween, you'll find people are dressing up as whatever is currently popular. So for example, if Halloween was happening this week, then people would be dressing up as coronavirus or as, and they wouldn't be going to parties, of course. They'd be dressing up as coronavirus. They'd be dressing up as Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and they'd be dressing up as Joe Exotic or whatever the guy's called on the Netflix series. So if you were doing Halloween shirts right now, then I'd be thinking, how can we do something that's based along those current trends? So in the same way, for 4th of July, you could see if you can come up with any puns related to what I would do is list out some trends. So obviously we've got COVID is hot right now. So you could do something like the founding fathers with face masks on, or, you know, Benjamin Franklin with a face mask on, Abraham Lincoln with a face mask on. See if you can come up with some kind of pun or line that works with that kind of flows along with that. But again, just that same principle, going down this list and coming up with some trends. So what other trends are hot right now? I guess with it being a presidential campaigning year, you know, Joe Biden, Donald Trump are going to be big. Obviously, there's a market for 4th of July American stuff around presidents, so that's something you could do. So yeah, just kind of that would be my general kind of approach, doing something around trends. On the other hand, you could just kind of go really evergreen, and in that case, I would probably again start looking and thinking about phrase-based stuff. So puns, listing out words, trying to come up with rhyming words, trying to do some wordplay around stuff like that. And we won't do that one live because I think I've got a better example that we can dive into, but those would be my two kind of go-to approaches. And then kind of because it's 4th of July and it is a very, it conjures up a lot of visuals, I would start thinking about the kind of visuals that you do have around the 4th of July. So that would be like fireworks, red, white, and blue, you know, American style stuff, eagles, baseball caps, hamburgers, all those kind of elements and graphics and stuff that people associate with the 4th of July. And then you could do, this is where my mind kind of runs, is can you do something that's you know, taking those design elements and fit something in there that doesn't typically work with it, or kind of, you know, or it could work, but, you know, more often than not, something that kind of contrasts with that. So something that isn't necessarily American or is kind of weird and you wouldn't usually associate with that. So off the top of my head, I'm thinking of, for more evergreen ideas, you know, I've seen a lot of things like unicorns or dinosaurs that are dressed up and doing stuff for July the 4th of July. So stuff like that. Anyway, we'll leave that one. I'm just going to quickly go through a couple of these other suggestions and give my thoughts, because I want to dive into really the topic that I've picked, which I think would be a good one for us to tackle today. So another suggestion someone gave was streetwear. And I think this one is a really tricky one, because this is I mean, it is a topic in a sense, and it's a hobby, I guess, but it's also a style and a broad category of clothing almost. So where I would go with something like that is where I would go, if I was commissioned tomorrow to come up with some streetwear designs, I would initially look at some places that create streetwear um, designs and are known for that kind of thing. So off the top of my head, I'm thinking of a site called Everpress, which kind of it's kind of like Teespring, but it is more of a streetwear approach. Or you could just like Google streetwear, click on some of the top marketplaces, and just kind of get an idea of what the visuals are like right now for the streetwear community, if you like. And then I would kind of do what we just kind of talked about and see if there's any trends or topics that I could fit into the streetwear idea and do something like that. But in general, I think a topic as broad as that is going to be way too difficult to really come up with ideas for. Someone else said Christianity or the religion niche. Now, this is one where, again, the kind of example of doing a bit of a flow chart and coming up with some ideas, subcategories and stuff is really useful because, again, Christianity or religion is so broad and we can narrow it down in so many different ways. So, for example, if someone said, Michael, I'm launching a Christian clothing brand tomorrow or soon, and I'd like to commission you to come up with 50 designs, 50 original ideas, 50 original designs. Have at it, go and do what you want to do. So I would sit down and think, okay, Christian, what do we have? Well, we have people is one thing we have, as in there are famous Christians, there are Catholic saints, there are all your Bible characters or people from the Bible. There are, I don't know, famous missionaries, famous preachers, all this kind of stuff. So there's one kind of sub niche that you could go down. Another one would be kind of subjects within Christianity or within Christian thinking. So you could go and talk about certain theological topics. So you could do designs around, I don't know, the Trinity or around resurrection or something like that. So hopefully you get my point here. When you're talking about such a broad topic, what you want to do is narrow it down and get into some subcategories and just let your mind kind of give you some niches. I mean, I'm attracted to ideas around kind of people, especially because I think, if we go back a couple of 100 years and pick a few famous Christians, who were they? What were they? You could probably, after doing a bit of research, find out that, oh, there's a load of people who are really into this particular preacher from 200 years ago or whatever. Maybe I could do some funny designs around that, or not necessarily funny designs, but do some designs, about that particular person. Maybe they have a name that kind of works well with some puns or something. So hopefully, again, that kind of illustrates the point. Okay, let me rush through a couple of these other suggestions before I move on to my pick of the day. So somebody said Etsy gaming. I don't really know what that means. They said Etsy/gaming. Somebody said people of the age group 50 plus. Again, that's really, really broad, and I don't think it's going to be especially useful to do that. Okay, I think we can move on. Someone said Father's Day, but again, that's so broad. So I've kind of already illustrated the point of how I would approach something like that. Father's Day, you could approach it very much like we approach the 4th of July, in that we can look at some trends, see if we can tie some things together from current events. But personally, I don't do a lot of event or holiday-based stuff. I do have designs that will apply. You could apply them to a holiday. For example, I might have puns based around a American president, and you may adapt them, or they may just happen to be popular around the 4th of July because people are Googling or searching for Abraham Lincoln t-shirt, and they happen to find my pun based on Abraham Lincoln and want to wear it on the 4th of July. But I don't really sit down and create designs around a holiday or around a subject like that, except in the specific area where I am creating a series. For example, I think last year we did a kind of Christmas series of around 20 designs. And it was less of a, it was more creating designs to do a series of Christmas designs rather than it was trying to do evergreen Christmas designs, if that makes sense. Don't think I've explained that very well. Anyway, let's leave that one there, and let's start doing some live ideas. So hopefully that kind of explains stuff. And before we go into a couple of comments coming up in here. Lang says, "How about anime? Is that too broad?" Yeah, I think it is too broad. I mean, you've got to put yourself in the seat of your potential buyers, and how many anime fans will sit down and write anime T-shirt? And if you're thinking about like keywords and how people are going to find your stuff, obviously anime T-shirt is going to be so broad, so competitive that you've got no chance of making sales there. Whereas if you narrow it down and you know something about a particular anime, a particular series, a particular sub-community that likes a particular character in that series, how they refer to themselves, what those characters in that anime wore, whether there were any T-shirts that they wore that you can replicate, I don't know. But you see how you need to go deep and narrow in order to come up with some solid ideas, because those kind of broad topics like anime are just way too big. So let me give you what I'm going to do here is give you this topic that I think is quite appropriate right now, very current, and I just want to explain before I do that my typical approach to ideas. So I think I've explained maybe last week as well my my overall kind of approach to ideas and designs is something like this. So I will have an idea. Let's illustrate that. So here's my idea. And then what I will do is then go and, no, in fact, what comes before the idea is you have to have some kind of knowledge about something. So you have to know, something. You could call that knowledge or insight. I think if you've got insight into a particular topic, that is a real advantage. So knowing something about a topic, let's say I know something about whatever it is, a particular Christian theologian or preacher from 200 years ago, that gives me a bit of insight. Now, we've still got, of course, to go through some steps. So then I might come up with an idea based off my insight. So let's say that I know that there's a sub-community of people who are really into, I don't know, a particular, character from 200 years ago or whatever. And they share memes and jokes about him. Well, that's good, because then I could come up with a funny idea about that person, and that would give me some insight. And my pen has stopped working. Whoops, sorry guys. Let me just charge my things falling off the table. Charge my iPad pencil a second there before I plug us back in. Well, let me talk you through it instead. So first you've got your knowledge, your insight, then you've got your idea. Then I would go and check to see if that idea has really been done already. And then if it hasn't, or if it's been done but not very well, or I think I could do it much better and it's not that competitive, then I would go and proceed with the design and taking it through to the next level and really coming up with a concept off the back of it. So that's kind of my typical approach. And I just kind of explain that to say that I'm not typically looking at things necessarily that are selling right now, because I think if you're working from a place of, if you're working from, I've got some insight, I've got some knowledge, and then I'm going to apply it, then you're working from your own what's the word? Your own resources. You're not looking at what someone else is doing. You're coming up with your own ideas. You're coming up with your own bits of insight that other people can't really replicate. And it's very hard for them to replicate. Okay, looks like we're back here. Did my pen work? No, it's because I changed it to yellow. Why didn't you tell me? Okay, so yeah, idea, then check whether it's been done, and then proceed to the design stage, which is kind of what we did last week. So without further ado, I think the topic right now that we should try and come up with some ideas for is this. Don't know whether you've seen this on the news, but it's kind of been going around for the past couple of days, maybe the past week. But there's been quite a bit of talk and a lot of memes around murder hornets, which are these massive hornets that come in, have entered into the States, I think, and they kill honeybees or something like that. Anyway, murder hornets. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go and Google it after, but that's basically it. So we're talking about great big hornets, which of course everyone doesn't like anyway. There's my drawing of a hornet. So why I think this is good, this is kind of in my area of my comfort zone, because it's current, it's a trend, it's something that people are already kind of sharing jokes and things about, especially this kind of joke of obviously we're still in shutdown and quarantine and COVID, and that's bad. And then all of a sudden now we've got these murder hornets which are coming over and which can apparently kill people and stuff. I think they kill bees more than they kill people. But anyway, it's a there's a kind of a narrative and a nice joke narrative that's already developing around that, and you can see that in some of the memes and stuff. So that's why I think it's good. I also had a bit of a search online and could find very little in terms of designs around this. So I think that if you're willing to take some of these ideas and run with them, which you are perfectly able to do and take, because I'm throwing out ideas and we're not going to do any design, so there's no copyright involved. You can't trademark or copyright an idea, so you can run with any of these ideas that we're going to come up with here. Now, it may or may not be, of course, let me just backtrack a little step here. It may or may not be something that people search for, that people want to buy shirts about or anything like that. But as I kind of think I explained last week as well, but I'll repeat it again. My approach is lots of ideas, lots of designs over a long period of time. And the idea is that all these, if this is time, you just have a lot of ideas, and you should be just kind of building those ideas up over time, creating lots of designs. And, maybe Murder Hornets is just one down here that doesn't particularly do very well, but it's okay because we've got all these other topics. And over time, you're simply building up a big portfolio. And unless you're not improving, or unless you're getting worse at it, then in general, you should simply see an increase in sales over time. So, of course, this is a long time frame. And I just say that to say, this is just an idea that I would typically approach and create designs for. I'm not going to, so I'm going to share the ideas with you. But don't take that as these are going to be bestsellers, or this is going to be a topic that's still live in a week or two. It may not. It may die on its face. But also, because it's, I don't know, there's something about the idea of a murder hornet and the exaggerated nature of it and stuff that I think it's something that I would like to create ideas for anyway and designs for anyway. Also, because even if people aren't necessarily going to search for it, so if we say, like, of course, one of the primary ways that people find our designs is by searching, whether that's on Amazon or Google or searching on Redbubble. There's other ways that I distribute designs. For example, my Instagram account, which has a following, 10,000 or so followers at the moment, which I can push ideas out to, and which usually results in sales. And that's because I know what those people respond to. And it does tend to be kind of pop culture-y stuff. So something like this, I feel it would work well. Murder Hornets, I could see that there would be some kind of overlap there with my audience. They would get the joke, they would find it funny. And also there's other things like offline licensing. So I'm not sure whether Murder Hornets would be something that most of my offline partners would be interested in, but it's possible. And it could be that there's a couple of jokes and ideas in here that are more evergreen and that will work over time, rather than just being, a trend that goes up and down like that, which in general you'd want to avoid. A couple of comments have come in here. Let's see. Coffee, how do you handle having the ideas but not the graphic skills? You need to find someone who can do the graphics for you, Coffee. Whether that's, hiring, well, it's going to have to be hiring someone. unless you can find a partner who's a pretty good designer. Chris says murder hornets is human tragedy. I doubt that, but could be. One thing I would say is, designs and ideas, I don't think of them as this isn't going to work for a particular platform, therefore I'm not going to do it. I always think of, I like this design, I like this idea, I'm going to create it, I'm going to put it out there. Oh, it can't go on that platform. Okay, big deal, whatever, onto the next platform. So something to bear in mind there. Chuck, everyone is going to get rich off these? Probably not. And Much by Pal, are you doing these streams regularly? Yes, at the moment I'm doing them every week. No plan to change that at the moment. I think we'll keep this going for a while, especially while we're in lockdown anyway. Okay, so let me... I have got some ideas here off the back of this. Now, of course, my tendency is towards humorous design. So my initial kind of reaction, and that's good because this is a topic that's kind of humor based anyway. I don't think there's going to be many people creating murder hornet designs that don't have some kind of humor element to it. But that's kind of my bent anyway, so it's useful for us. So typically, the initial thing that came to mind here is that murder hornets are like bees, of course, in that they're a similar kind of animal, but they're the opposite, of course, because everyone loves bees and everyone wants to protect bees, but no one wants to love or protect murder hornets. So humor being the conflict of two elements. The first idea I had was something like save the murder hornets, as in, let's invert that typical save the bees kind of design and say save the murder hornets instead. And that's funny because it's exactly the opposite of what you expect it to be. Along those lines as well, I think there's a very popular design which is something like plant these, save the bees, and it's like let me draw it. It's kind of just like some flowers, pictures of flowers like this, and it says plant these and save the bees. So I don't know whether you could do something like that kind of inverts that and is, I don't know what rhymes with murder hornets. But I just thought, something that kind of plays off that graphic of, and I'm environmentally friendly, look after nature, da 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 da, but then you're supporting a murder hornet. I don't know. Again, of course, you have to kind of roll with my sense of humor here. Another quick idea that came to me very quickly was this idea of murder hornets are scary, and then to try and think from that, what else is scary and what kind of designs can we do off the back of that? So one thing that came to mind was the typical Jaws poster, iconic Jaws poster, which looks like that with the shark at the bottom and then the lady swimming, and whether you could take that approach and do something with the murder hornets. So I don't know whether it says hornets at the top or something like that, and then you have a kind of big angry looking hornet coming up, but something like that. So what we're doing there is we're taking this idea of hornets being a scary threat and doing something off the back of that. So that kind of idea came to me. A couple of ideas coming in here already. So Ron says murder hornet, she wrote. I like that. I think that's my level of humor. So yeah, something like that. Zombies, says Teresa. Yeah, I mean, zombies. I'm trying to think of some kind of iconic. If there's some kind of iconic, what's the famous zombie movie? The Night of the Living Dead or whatever it is. Then that could work well as an iconic kind of approach. Something like that. Chris says make a cute baby murder hornet. So that's a good idea. That's kind of taking the idea of scary, and then instead of following it through with things that are scary, just kind of flipping it and going instead the opposite direction for something cute and cuddly, like a cute murder hornet, or I think you could do what are known cute and cuddly kind of icons and stuff like that. So you could do something like My Little Pony, and it could be like My Little Murder Hornet as like a cute pet that a kid might have or something like that. So yeah, that's a great idea. That kind of approach of trying to contrast, taking some core element of the topic and then flipping it and finding something that contrasts with it very well. So yeah, great idea there, Chris. Hitchcock's Birds, could be a good one because that's kind of an iconic movie that people recognize. So yeah, The Walking Dead, says Kevin. Yeah, that kind of idea. We got one from Anona, Murder Hornets. So yeah, kind of playing off the use of the word hornets and hairnet. So that's good. Chainsaw Hornet, yeah. See where we're going. Or hornets wearing face masks, says Sue. So yeah, kind of combining the two, the COVID and the hornets. Now I'm going to keep on going because I've got plenty more to throw at you and kind of analyze for you as well. So here's one that is kind of less relies less on humor, but the idea that, of course, murder hornets is something that people want to stop. So this is kind of something that same kind of thing happened with coronavirus. You get a lot of these t-shirts that just say "Stop coronavirus" or "Down with coronavirus" and stuff like that. It's not necessarily funny. It just is an expression of people's opposition to something. People say "Stop Trump" or "Stop Biden" or whatever. It's just kind of a stop X approach, you could call it. So to kind of visualize this, of course, you could do something like a Ghostbusters style, red warning sign shape with a hornet inside. Stop the murder hornets or murder hornet busters, something like that. Simple, effective, obviously works great as a t-shirt. The Ghostbusters icon is one of the most iconic t-shirts of the past 20, 30 years, something like that. So yeah, Chuck, Hornet Lives Matter. So again, kind of playing on that idea. So yeah, there's another one there. One of the obvious ones that I thought of was going down the sports route, because hornets are one of those animals that we use for sports teams. So you could do, how would I illustrate this? So something like, your hornet, angry looking hornet, and then you do something like, it would be very stylized vector text and stuff. So you could do the 2020 Murder Hornets, and it looks like a sports team logo or a basketball team logo or whatever the team logo is. Something like that. And that's obvious that it's going to work well because, of course, that's a t-shirt concept that is already out there and is familiar to people. So people would get the joke. Maybe you could do it like the North American 2020 Murder Hornets, something like that, kind of a sports approach. But I think that could work well. A couple of other ones which I think are, I guess it's up to you whether you think they're funny or not, but I was thinking about the idea of what I would call like staple ideas, which is usually where you label someone as something to do with that topic. So you might label someone as like an expert, or you might identify someone as part of a team. So for example, you could say Murder Hornet. In fact, so I don't have to keep writing Murder Hornet, I'll just use MH. Murder Hornet Keeper, like beekeeper, but instead of bees, they're keeping murder hornets. Murder Hornet Whisperer. Again, it's up to you whether you think these are funny or not, but I think something like that is kind of funny. Anything where there's kind of, you could just Google like bee t-shirts or beekeeper t-shirts and try and see what some of the ideas are, and then just try and invert them, or slip in murder hornet in there instead. Um, Murder hornet police, like maybe people who want to kind of close down the murder hornets or something like that. And then yeah, let's keep going. I've got more to throw. So another one, a kind of obvious one. This is what you might call a real life idea. Would be to have your t-shirt and simply do a quite realistic, detailed illustration of a murder hornet, kind of with a bit of a shadow, so it looks like they've got this murder hornet on their shirt, and it could be kind of a scary joke gag shirt or something like that. I think that would work. I think there's one of the big stories that's been going around. I think it was in the New York Times, and the photo was of a guy just with a massive murder hornet on his chest. So something like that could work as an interesting idea. Of course, you've got the typical pocket approach if you wanted to do something like that, but whether people really want to walk around with a joke murder hornet in their pocket, I don't know. Maybe they would. A couple of other just kind of text-based ones. So I've got like a list of phrases and stuff that I run through to try and see if anything jumps out. I was thinking of the idea of like a murder hornet as kind of like the kind of honey badger joke of, honey badgers are savages, and they just take what they want or anything like that. So I thought you could do something like murder hornet mode on. Something like that could be funny. Or you could do like murder hornet in training. Could work for kids who are driving people crazy. I don't know. Another kind of staple one could be something like Murder Hornet Appreciation Society or Murder Hornet Preservation Society. Again, that kind of joke of taking an animal that we want to preserve, like a bee, and flipping it on its head or whatever. And another one, kind of because we're in an election year, could be Murder Hornets 2020. Just kind of plays off that idea of like the giant meteor 2020 idea, or whatever, some kind of abstract, terrible thing that would be a better president than whoever's in charge, or who your options are for 2020 or something like that. Murder hornet is my spirit animal, could go with. Again, kind of the honey badger joke going on there. Another idea could be you could do kind of like murder hornets versus COVID, and it could be like a big kind of fight, kind of boxing match thing, kind of joke. I don't know. I think there's potential there to do something around that idea. And then a couple of other ideas that came are kind of based on, if we think about bands, like the Murder Hornets is a great name for a band any time of the year. So you could do something like I'm thinking of like it's a bit tall. You could do something like a metal band kind of approach. So the kind of metal. So this would say Murder Hornets, but I'm not going to write it out. You could do that kind of metal graphic with some kind of drawing, metal style drawing of a murder hornet in there. And then you could do something like Murder Hornets North American Tour 2020 or something like that, and make it look like a band's tour t-shirt. I think that could be an interesting one. Another approach, not necessarily around murder hornets, but getting us into this joke around 2020 and how bad the year is, how terrible everything is. I think, I don't know how many have seen, there was a kind of festival design that was kind of a stay home festival, and it was like social distancing and those, let's find it. It's times like this when you realize your mouth and your brain don't line up well when you're live streaming. Stay home festival shirt. I'll share this with you. Stay inside. So I don't know who was the first one to do this design, but I think it's proved pretty popular. This one maybe. So Stay Home Festival says like personal space, books, reading, coffee, puzzles, Netflix, whatever. So of course the joke is it looks like a festival T-shirt, which everyone recognizes the concept of a festival T-shirt. You know, it says whatever Woodstock Festival 1969, and it lists all the bands who are playing. So that kind of concept you could go with. I was thinking of doing a more 2020 festival. So it could be like 2020 festival, and it could be like COVID and shutdown and murder hornets and Biden and Trump or whatever, and just like a list of things that are going wrong with the world, and you could do some funny taglines around that. So I think that's something you could run with. I also had this idea as a kind of stream of consciousing of doing this kind of that running off that kind of idea of 2020 being a terrible year and stuff. You could do just some really simple text things like "Dear 2020, murder hornets." You know, question mark, really? I don't know, something like that. Or "Dear 2020, you can stop now. Sincerely, everybody." So those kind of approaches, I'm sure you could all come up with your own kind of versions of that idea, but this kind of idea of the year being terrible and you know, some kind of pithy phrase that sums that up or encapsulates that, I think that could be something that you know, that people really respond well to. So let me just look through my list again and see if anything pops out that I've missed. I think if I was to isolate a few of my favorites, I think the idea of doing like a band T-shirt, I think that could be really cool, like the Murder Hornets, you know, metal band, North American tour 2020. That's funny. And anything that taps into the 2020 thing, and also just like simple stuff like you know, Murder Hornets Busters, or another one you could do is kind of a jokey one. You can do like an anatomy of a murder hornet. So it could say at the top, anatomy of murder hornet. And then you kind of point out different parts of the murder hornet. So it could be like, you know, deathly stinger or something like that, bits and bobs. Angry eyes, whatever. Or you could be more serious about it, but it's just kind of a funny approach to you know, to kind of illustrate the point, a kind of layout based idea around that. So I hope that was helpful. Those are some of the ideas that I would approach. And then I would simply take one of those and try and, you know, come up with some concepts around it, try and narrow down the design, which is kind of what we did in the last session. We took a concept and then we created a design. I think I saw earlier this week someone illustrated the design process as something like this. So it starts out and you have all these crazy ideas, and then you just kind of narrow it down until you get there and finalize it. And that's the, you know, this is time. And that's what happens. So what we've done today is this part. You know, I've thrown a lot of ideas out. It gets very crazy. Some are going to be good ideas, some are going to be bad ideas. But then the next step is to try and take one of those ideas. So maybe you take this idea of the Murder Hornets as a band, and you kind of have a think about, okay, well, do we do a metal band? Do we do a punk rock band? Do we do a I don't know, some other approach, some other kind of visual approach. But what kind of approaches could we do that could make that an effective t-shirt design that really works well on a t-shirt? And that's kind of as you get into this process, and then as you narrow it down further, you get to the kind of final design process. So, so yeah, I hope that's been helpful. I think my typical approach would be to pick maybe 2 or 3 out of this list. I don't know how many ideas really we threw at it there, but probably something like 20, 25 ideas. Simple text-based ideas would obviously be very quick to produce, don't take a lot of time or effort. The graphic ones obviously are going to take longer, so that's going to take you longer to try and finalize the concept and narrow it down. Just to kind of illustrate the idea, I do find it helpful actually if you've got like a vague idea of what you want to do. So, for example, this the idea of doing this as a kind of metal approach, then just to Google the broadest descriptive word of your topic. So, for example, metal T-shirt, and then just let your eyes glance over what comes up in Google Images. You quickly get an idea of obviously the kind of graphics that work well for that kind of thing, and how you might be able to do something that fits with that. I mean, even this has given me an idea. Just a simple, just a simple approach like that. You could do murder hornets and its rainbows, and because it doesn't work with the approach, that could be funny. Just a very simple murder hornets, not a unicorn, but rainbows, sparkles, clouds, all that kind of stuff. And again, just looking over these kind of graphics will allow you to kind of, you might spot some iconic designs, or you might spot some iconic elements that would work well. You'll certainly get an idea of the colors and the fonts and the treatments that you're going to want to do. But yeah, that kind of approach can be helpful as you're getting into the more conceptual style. So, I realize I haven't taken many questions so far. So, any questions in the last 5 minutes here as we round it out? We've gone for about an hour. I hope it was useful for you and you found that interesting. I should probably say, before we take any questions, if you do want more help with your ideas and stuff, then I have something for that. A lot of the kind of approaches and stuff you'll find in here. This is my little book of t-shirt ideas. It is, I think, 14 chapters full of, let me go into full. There we go. 14 chapters full of illustrations, examples, step-by-step, how to come up with ideas. It gives you examples. It gives you a process to follow for each one. And there's a couple of chapters in the start about how I kind of come up with ideas. So kind of what I did today, but more formulated, more explicit. I go into it in a bit more detail. So so if you're looking for more help with your ideas, that's a good place to start. It will kind of introduce you to my kind of approach to that stuff. And you can get it on my website. In fact, if you go to michaelessick.com/LBI for Little Book of Ideas, you can find it there. Okay, a couple of questions, I think. What were the other ideas, Ferdinand? I think what I'll do is I will take all these ideas that we came up with and I'll put them in a list, maybe in a Google Doc or a text doc or something. And I'll just include it in my email tomorrow if you'd like that. I imagine people might find that helpful and useful. And then you won't have to keep rewatching this video to come up with some ideas. Okay. Chuck says, murder hornets are the new unicorns. Yes, I guess They could be. Samuel says, how much time do you spend developing a concept for a t-shirt? It depends. I think the clearer the picture is in my head, then it doesn't take very long at all. Like, for example, here today, that idea of Murder Hornets as a band, that could easily become a design within a matter of hours, if not less, because I know where I want to go with it. I know what it should look like, and it would be relatively easy to come out the other side with a design. So yeah, it can be very short. Other times you've got a vague idea, and you have to work at the concept and just kind of keep going at it. But yeah, that's kind of usually my approach. Kirby says, how does longevity factor into which designs you keep developing? Also, do you consider time to develop as something to prioritize which to go with? Yeah, so typically, Kirby, going through a kind of idea generation process like that, which I might do, I don't know, once or twice a week around a particular topic or subject, I would then usually have like 2 or 3 standout ones, which I'll add to my to-do list. And I won't do much filtering on those. I'll just be like, there's something about them that I like, that I think is a good idea, so I'll just go and create it. And then what I might do is look back over those ideas I've come up with and maybe start filtering a little bit more and seeing if I can push them a little bit further. And that kind of comes under, I guess, the prioritizing element. But typically when I'm thinking about priorities and what to do, I think I don't know, I've changed my habits a lot, but when it was working best for me, when I was putting out the most designs that I've ever done, I was not stopping to think about filtering. I was just pushing ideas out, and I was handing a lot of ideas over to my partner designers and getting them to do stuff. And I wasn't really thinking twice. So much so that I think I missed a lot of low hanging fruit because I didn't spend so much time on the concepts. I would just kind of want to get designs out all the time. I was pushing out like 40 designs a week or something. So yeah, it depends where you're at and what works best for you. But I don't. I think I would say now I'm much more kind of filtery, and I'm much more thinking about where this design is going to be in a year. Where can I sell it? Have I got a clear distribution channel for it? Rather than just throwing a load of stuff at the wall anymore. I've kind of developed from that. But I still think that's a very good strategy, especially if you're trying to learn and you're trying to see what works for you and all that kind of stuff. Gary says, the book is fantastic. I highly recommend it. Thank you, Gary. I did not even pay him to say that. Ray says, suggestions on how to get initial sales on Teespring. He owns the book and it's great. Thank you, Ray. I don't know. Teespring has never been a big hitter for me because it doesn't have a lot of organic traffic. If you go on my website, you can see my guide to the best print-on-demand sites 2020, and there's a lot of websites analyzed in that list. Teespring is not one that I recommend for organic traffic. Teespring works more like a shop front, if you're going to drive your own traffic. So I would simply say if you're looking to make easy sales or you're looking to make organic sales without spending money or whatever, then you don't want to be looking at Teespring. You want to be looking at Merch by Amazon, Redbubble, TeePublic, Society6, kind of in that order. I can't remember the other ones on that list off the top of my head. Ferdinand, how do I get the book? Go to michaelessick.com/LBI and you can pick it up there. There's an ebook version, there's a paperback version, and there's also a poster as well if you're really interested. Worth every penny, says Ashley. Thank you very much. Chris says, when comes the TeePublic guide? Yes, Chris, I have not forgotten and I am working on it still. I've been a little bit under the weather this week, so haven't been top of my game. I've only just really started feeling better yesterday and today. So yes, I did promise a TeePublic guide. It is still in the works and it will be with you, I will say, next week. Definitely next week. Teresa, that would be helpful. She has the book already. Wonderful. What is the best program for a beginner in this field? So for t-shirt designing, making money from organic platforms and that kind of thing, a complete beginner I don't know. I would say read my website, read the main blog posts on there. They're linked in the sidebar on michaelessick.com, and that will give you a lot of intro. I think there's some articles I've got going back many years, several years, about how I kind of grew my business this way. And I've got a couple of books. I've got some free books you can download, and some stuff you can get hold of on my website as well. So yeah, just try and immerse yourself in that. And I mean, there's a lot of resources about print on demand. I think you can get stuck in the quagmire quite quickly, and it's important really to just kind of start creating and getting stuff out there. But yeah, I'm just going to recommend my own website. How's about that? Vivian, I own the book too. It's great. Thank you. Lang loves it too. It works great because you can just pick it up and make some ideas. Thank you, Lang. Ferdinand, other than Amazon, which are the best for organic traffic? So yeah, if you go on my website, Ferdinand, I will show you where to go. If you go on michaelessick.com, let me expand this a little bit. There we go. And right here in the sidebar, we've got top articles. So these are the most important articles I think you should read. The best print on demand, not companies. We want the best print on demand sites. That's this one here. And I've got a list there of my top ones. So Merch by Amazon, then Redbubble, then TeePublic, Society6, Fine Art America, Displate, and Threadless. And then I go into detail about each one, what makes them good, what makes them bad, why you would want to sell on there. And if you pop your email in on this little pop-up box, then I will email you the whole article as a PDF, and I will give you access to a Airtable. I'll just show you that too. This Airtable base, which contains all the traffic data and stuff that I use to make this blog post. So this is information about how many visitors these sites have, how many followers they have. So you can see all the data, what their kind of trends, as in what their traffic trends are looking like, how much they get from search engines, categorize them by what type of site they are, estimated monthly sales and estimated monthly income, even figured out the percentage that you would have to take off these sites in order to make $1,000 a month. So did you know, for example, that if you want to sell on Redbubble and you want to make $1,000 a month, you would have to get 0.06% of the sales on Redbubble every month to make that much. So that's, when you put it that way, doesn't seem so unachievable, does it? On the other hand, if you scroll down to the bottom, if you wanted to make that much on Busted Tees, you'd have to have 22% of the total monthly sales on Redbubble. In other words, you'd have to sell all the designs that sell on Busted Tees. Did I say Redbubble? Sorry, I meant Busted Tees. Of all the designs that sell on Busted Tees every month, 22% of those would have to be your designs in order for you to make $1,000 a month. So that's why you don't really want to be spending your time down at the bottom of the list. You want to be spending your time up at the top of the list around these organic ones. So yeah, hope that helps you, Fernando. Oh, Ferdinand. Sorry, Ferdinand. Sheila says, I have the book too. Is there a list of phrases you look at? So yeah, the book, it contains some of those phrases. I have my own list of phrases, and I think in the not too distant future, I will be sharing that publicly. I'll make that available as part of a package or something. Fighting Words, do you still have plans to sell the Simple Shirt Site program? I probably won't be running any kind of promos about it, but if you email me, then I can hook you up with that if you're interested. And Anona says, thank you for these sessions and all the free info you provide. Helpful and inspiring. Thank you, Anona. I appreciate that. Okay, so I think I've answered everyone's questions. If I didn't, I'll just give you a couple of minutes to add yours there. Yeah, once again, if you enjoyed it today, if you thought that was useful and interesting, I will email you tomorrow, assuming you're on my email list, of course. If you're not, you need to go to michaelessick.com/subscribe and sign up there. And then I'll email you tomorrow with the list of all the ideas that we came up with today, just to help you out. I'll put them in a Google Doc and email that out as a PDF or whatever. And if you want more help with your ideas, go to michaelessick.com/LBI. Pick up the little book of t-shirt ideas. Comes with all these goodies, 72 something pages. No, more than that. 111 pages worth of t-shirt idea goodness. And yeah, and I'll email you that tomorrow. Not the book, the ideas. You can go and buy the book if you want. But if this was helpful, if you liked it, if you enjoyed it today, please post a comment saying to that effect so that I know that you enjoyed it. I'll also send a usual email out asking what we should do next week. Would you like more idea generation? Should we do more design work? Should we do some design critiques? Not done that for a while. So yeah, if you've got ideas and suggestions on that, I'm always happy to hear it. You can always email me anytime, michael@michaelessick.com as well. Finance Rambling says, is Amazon merch on the list? It's on my list of... what's it on my list of? It's on my list of top print-on-demand sites. I don't have traffic data for it because it's very hard to analyze the traffic for merch by Amazon. It's nigh on impossible. But if you go to this blog post, you can read my opinion of merch by Amazon there. So yeah, all right. Kevin says thanks. Thank you, Kevin. Lisa says thanks. Kirby says thanks. Gary says great info as always. Thank you very much. Thank you, Reiki. Pupiful. Awesome. Will this be available for replay? Yes, it should shortly after I finish this video now. And Sheila says good ideas. Enjoyed it a lot. I'd like more of this style workshop. Okay, cool. Thank you, guys. Yeah, your feedback is always helpful, especially in helping me decide what I should be doing next. What you guys get the most help from. It's always great. Okay, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Samuel. All right, I think we'll leave it there for today. Have a great rest of your day. Have a good weekend. We'll do the same or something similar next week. And good luck with your Murder Hornet designs if you're going to do some. Feel free to send them in as well. It'd be nice to see them, and especially if you start making a load of sales from them, you need to that is my one caveat. If you come up with some Murder Hornet sales off the back of these ideas, do please send me an email that says, hey, I made some sales from your ideas, here's a screenshot or something. That would be cool. All right, okay, guys, thank you very much. Thank you, Coffee. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Ray, Samuel, and Shurs. All right, have a great rest of your day. Take it easy, stay safe, and I'll see you all next week.